the Arizona Cardinals make it official. According to our guy Jordan Schultz, friend of the program, they signed free agent wide receiver Zay Jones. I just saw this right before we broke on air, Bo. Ian Rappaport said he chose the Arizona Cardinals over teams like Kansas City, that's crazy. I'll allow it, though. Zay Jones is signing a one-year contract up to $4.5 million, roughly around there. That's similar to what Tyler Boyd just signed in Tennessee. Zay Jones, again, coming off a subpar season. He missed like 7-8 games, but the year before that was a pretty big focal point in a Jaguar offense that went to the postseason, won a playoff game. You talk about proven depth. I think it was our guy Kyle Odegaard was joking tongue-in-cheek like he's the most accomplished wide receiver for the Cardinals. Doesn't mean he's going to be wide receiver 1, 2, or 3, but, I mean, you're signing guys this late in the game for vet minimum contracts potentially is a good addition.
It absolutely is a good addition, and, we have to maybe we weren't exactly right on this one. You and I didn't see this organization going out and doing that, right, and spending the money. I mean, it's not a ton of money. I mean, according to Pelissaro and Rap Sheet, it's just $4.25 million. Yeah. But it's a nice, savvy move for Monty Osford. You're starting to see what kind of GM Monty Osford is when he's not tearing things down and he's starting to build things back up and he's starting to put pieces in place for a season that they expect to compete in. So I like the addition. Obviously, what's not to like about it? I was a little skeptical. What would be Zay Jones' interest as far as what his role could potentially be here in the desert, because it feels like as far as their starting wide receiver positions, those are accounted for. They belong to Marvin Harrison Jr. They belong to Michael Wilson Jr. at the Z spot. And then, of course, you got Greg Dortch. But, we see 3 to 4 wide out sets. And I think that the Arizona Cardinals, they're going to not just kick the tires on Zay Jones, but I think this is a guy that, even at signing in May is going to be somebody that's going to vie for a roster spot and some snaps.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think if Zach Pascal had any hope of playing in this offense, I think it kind of just went out the window, frankly. Unless it's exclusive on rundowns, this is a time now for Zay Jones. He is not a run blocker first. He's a receiver, stretch the field, 6'2", big presence, not a perfect player. Has been known to drop some footballs, but again, it's how much are they asking him to do? Is he going to be willing to play special teams, right? He's going to compete with Michael Wilson. He's going to compete with Greg Dortch and let the best men win for those competitions. I think Dortch and specifically Michael Wilson have a higher upside, but I also think if Michael Wilson has to miss a game or two, this is a player that can absolutely come in and start for you 100%.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
This is a player that's been to the postseason, that's played with Trevor Lawrence, that has a familiarity with what the Cardinals want to do offensively. I'm hesitant to say there's zero downside, but I do believe there's zero downside to this move.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to find it. I mean, when you're adding depth pieces, guys who have had 800-yard receiving seasons, he comes in at 6'2". He's got good speed. He's been around the block. He's played some big time football, and there isn't a downside to it. It's just a nice signing, and there were some good teams that were in on Zay Jones. This is not just like the New England Patriots saying, "Hey, we just looked at our roster. It sucks. You'll come in and immediately get snaps." No, this was the Kansas City Chiefs. This was the Dallas Cowboys that were vying for his services. And he looked at it and he said, "You know what? I like what's going on in the desert. I like Kyler Murray. I like Marvin Harrison Jr. to compliment me. I like Trey McBride." There's a ton of mouths to feed, but we know in this game, it's inevitable injuries are, right? As you mentioned with Michael Wilson, but it's not just Michael Wilson. It's across the board. And if you got somebody is versatile as far as the receiving game goes in Zay Jones, I think you're in a good spot. I think he could be a backup essentially at all 3 wide receiver spots.
Yeah, he's played slot and outside receiver, so he can do both. Now, is he going to do both at a high level? No, I think again, if you look up at the end of the year, what's a realistic stat line for a player of this caliber? I think 3 to 4 touchdowns would be great. I think anything over 400 yards, assuming everybody else stayed healthy, I think that's solid contributions. I mean, they have a lot of mouths to feed suddenly offensively. Adam Schefter tweeted this out. So you have Zay Jones. You have the aforementioned 3 receivers that we talked about. You have 3 tight ends that I think they're fired up about, including Tip Raymond, Higgy Bear, and of course, Trey McBride, which we're going to talk to Mina Kimes about a little bit later in the show. And then you have 3 backs. Remember when they had no backs last year when James Conner went out? Then they added Michael Carter, and now they have Trey Benson. There are a lot of guys on this offense now, big physical players. Outside of Dortch, who plays bigger than his size, it's all about physicality, presence in this offense with Kyler Murray, and that lends itself well. We've been conditioned too long to small, 10 personnel offensive football in Arizona. Like they had the infrastructure last year of what they wanted to do, but they didn't have the personnel, right? And then they trade away Rondell Moore, and they add MHJ, and they add Chris Moore, and now they add Zay Jones. It's like, oh yeah, it's really obvious what they're doing. And boy, oh boy, we thought Drew Petzing had a type for a receiver, and now it's like you've come out, you've posted it, I don't know, on the dating app. Like, I am into big receivers. This is what I'm into. Yeah. Nobody else. It's like when us short kings try to go on the dating app, and it's just like, nope, swipe left or whatever it is. You're 5'7".
Tough.
Yeah, that's what it's like for a receiver trying to get in this receiving room for Drew Petzing.
Absolutely. No, you love that Monty Ossenford, as soon as Zay Jones hit the market, right? As soon as that he hit his relationship status as single, Monty Ossenford was intrigued, right?
Yeah.
He's swiping right on the dating app, and he's got another big body receiver, 6'2". That's what Zay Jones is. Let's take inventory of this, right? I posted it after Rap Sheet reported it out there. I mean, it's already Zay Jones joining near 6'4" Marvin Harrison Jr., a near 6'3" Michael Wilson at 6'2" himself, and Zay Jones, 6'1" Chris Moore, Zach Pascal at 6'2". You've got even the guys that they got at the end of the draft, and Tajon Palmer, and somebody that signed off this as undrafted rookie free agent, and Xavier Weaver, over 6 feet tall. The only person in that wide receiver room plays bigger than he is, and Greg Dortch, and that's how it's supposed to be, Steve Keim. That's how it's supposed to be. That's how you build a wide receiver room. So, it's exciting. It's exciting times in the desert. We're sitting here and we would have been just itching for a signing the caliber of Zay Jones. And now, like, not only do they go out and do it because they feel like their roster's in a position to add depth like that, but also that, they can keep up with the rest of the league and be at the negotiation table with teams like Kansas City and Dallas.
So give me your receivers that make this team, not practice squad. So we're going to fast forward to September. It's the opening Sunday. How many receivers make this team now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, you've got the always up and down from the practice squad, Andre Pacelli. Like, he's always there. Like, he's the girlfriend that you never wife up and never officially are in a relationship with, but always something there. I would say you got Marv. You've got yourself Michael Wilson. You've got Greg Dortch. Those are easy, right? And then you start to look at...
And Zay Jones is going to make this
Zay Jones, I think, immediately gets there. So then you're at 4. And then let's add Chris. Let's see.
Chris Moore's making the team. They just signed him.
Yeah, I think but it's not like, hey, you can't move off of that contract. He's got a 1-year deal for no money.
But he's a special teamer. I mean, he's not making his money.
When I'm looking at Palmer and I'm looking at Weaver, they got a long way to go.
I would venture to say, I hate saying no shot. How do those guys make the team now? Unless you're kicking ass and you got to have
special.
And like, how many opportunities are you even going to get during camp?
Yeah,
they must have known, because we're sitting there day 2 of the draft. Get Roman Wilson. Get a day 2 receiver, mix it in with Marv. Let's go. They take Tip Raymond. They take another lineman. They take a running back. They do everything but take a receiver. And now it's like obvious. Like, okay, they wanted to add a vet after the draft. I got that wrong. And so Marv is the exception. We got one. He just so happens to be our number 1 receiver. 1 rookie wide receiver of note. Palmer's a nice prospect. Weaver's a nice prospect. They got practice squad written all over them, don't they?
Yeah, they do, and I think that there's obviously an opportunity to sneak them through.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the good and bad is for them vying for a roster spot is they would make some noise in the preseason, and then they would probably catch the eyes of the teams not only that they would face in the preseason, but also the rest of the league. But like the Cardinals have, you gotta feel pretty comfortable with that room, right? I mean, I thought, and I was with you as far as on the fence of whether or not they would add him. But the vet presence goes a long way. Obviously it does with Pascal, and it transcends like the lack of the production or the lack of production from Pascal, even though he's a beast in the run game and in special teams. So those guys are going to have to embrace special teams big time to really have an opportunity here. But you look at the athletes now that they have on teams. Like I saw Jeff Rogers out there today to give a little insight as far as the first day of rookie minicamp. I mean, you got Trey Benson saying he's never played teams before. He's out there working out. Tip Ryman, as we mentioned, you've got Rabbit out there and Taylor Demerson, and then you got other players like Elijah Jones. Like guys they're gonna have some athletes on special teams, and you got Jeff Rogers, who's been with this organization for a while. He's been one of the few consistent mainstays that is really good at his job and coach these guys up and put them in a really rock solid spot.
It's amazing. Like once this team gets some talent and proven talent, like the rookies have to come in and be rookies again, right? They have to earn their keep. And Marvin aside, and Darius Robinson aside, like everybody else come in and play teams for a little bit. Budda Baker played special teams once upon a time. Like last year, it was like, let's just start everybody. Let's get all the rookies in here. Let's get them vital snaps. If you're a 6th-round corner in Keitrell Clark, guess what? You're thrust into the starting lineup because, those were the options at the time. A little bit different in 2024. It's a better feeling